Welcome to the Lessons for Living television program. My name is Bill Santos. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you were with us last week, you know that we had our special guest, Dr. Barry Bussey. We promised that he would be back again this week as we continue to look at this complexities in this intersection between law and religion. Dr. Bussey, thank you so much for coming back again.
Great to be here, Bill.
So folks, I would suggest that they go on our YouTube channel, watch last week's program. We don't want to take a whole lot of time because you have so much information. We want to go into that. But for those that weren't around last week, it's available on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page or at l4ltv.com. Now, in your PhD dissertation, you describe a revolution going on between law and religion. I mean, is it really that serious? I mean, it's
it's a revolution, and I use the term from a philosopher by the name of Thomas Kuhn, who talked about the anatomy of a scientific revolution. In other words, you know how science is absolutely convinced on one particular point, that the Earth is flat. Right. And then suddenly, we get telescopes invented and we find out, no, it's not so flat, right? Exactly. And it's a revolution in that sense.
Got it.
But nevertheless, it still has dramatic consequences. And the revolution I'm referring to is the idea that historically, in the West, Western countries, freedom-loving countries, we've always had a government has respected and accommodated religion and religious practice. And we see that, boatloads in early decisions at the Supreme Court of Canada, for example, where Chief Justice Brian Dixon talked about the importance of religious freedom and so on. In fact, he referred to religious freedom as part of the original freedoms. That was Justice Rand on original freedoms, but Dixon referred to it as a prototypical right, and that our liberal democracy is based on this importance of religious freedom. And so we've had these accommodations. And for example, you'll have, Sikh people who wear the turban in Alberta. You can drive your bicycle without wearing a helmet. You've had situations where people who have holy days and they want to get off of work in order to go to church or that kind of thing, right? So we've always accommodated. Even today, if you go for a gun license, and if your religious view is that you should never have your picture taken, then you don't have to have your picture taken, that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay. So there's always been this sense of accommodation. But in the last number of years, and I say it's only really within the last probably, I'd say 5-ish years, thereabouts, not even really a decade or so. It's maybe a decade, but even then, we've seen a dramatic change. And it's what I call a revolution. So it's a revolution in the sense that the law has accommodated religion, but today, because of the secular age, and those who want to go back to last week's program, as I've talked about that, as a result of that, we get this mindset that, no, we cannot accommodate religion now because, first of all, it's backward, and that we are, to give religious freedom, they would say, is to grant the right to discriminate. So religious freedom now is got this negative connotation that if your religious community, for example, doesn't ordain women, or your religious community says marriage is one man and one woman, those traditional concepts, then we're giving you the right to discriminate.
Wow.
And so that's playing in a big part. And so the Trinity Western University case, which we introduced last time, where this private religious school, exempt from the human rights legislation, had a previous case that went to the Supreme Court where they were granted religious freedom on having a new education program. Here they are now asking for a law program and are being denied. That is part of what I call the revolution. So in other words, we can't accommodate these people anymore because it goes against, quote, charter values. Now,
Yeah, what is that? So,
So charter values, we don't know what it means, and that's part of the problem. I mean, there's what it seems to be is that if you look at the charter as a whole, it has certain ideas that seem to resonate with the charter, like, for example, equality, human rights, and that kind of stuff. But what does equality mean? What does justice mean?
Right.
And who gets to determine what those mean? And so in the Trinity Western case, the court said, look, law societies, they can decide for themselves that the charter values are being violated as they define them. And the dissent, Justice Brown, Justice Cote and Justice Brown, who wrote an opinion in the Trinity Western cases that was in dissent. In other words, they disagreed with the majority. So it was a 7-2 majority against Trinity.
Okay.
And they basically said, charter values are the idiosyncrasies of the judicial mind. So in other words, it's up to the individual judge to decide what is a charter value, and that's why it's so controversial.
Right.
And what is fascinating to me is that in the Trinity Western case, the majority decision says, well, the charter values doctrine is an acceptable constitutional interpretive tool, or words to that effect, and that it's far from controversial. Well, in that decision itself, it's controversial because you had Justice even McLaughlin and Justice Rowe, both who wrote their own concurring opinions. In other words, they agreed with the majority, but they themselves had problems with charter values. And then, of course, the two justices who wrote in dissent. So even in the decision itself, it was a controversy.
Yeah, right.
So it's just mind-boggling as to what's happening. And I think charter values is a very, very dangerous subject and a dangerous concept and doctrine. And we see some decisions even in the Ontario Court of Appeal which are challenging this concept of charter values. So then what is a charter value?
Yes.
We don't know what a charter value is, but the judge seems to know when he or she sees it. But the problem is, and here's the big issue, here is where it comes right to the pinnacle. The problem is that a charter value, which is not defined in the charter, it's not in the Canadian Constitution, anywhere will you find the term charter value and its definition. But yet, that charter value concept was used by the majority in Trinity Western to take away a charter right that is in the Constitution.
Wow.
And that is why it's so dangerous.
A charter value which is not defined eliminates a charter right that is defined.
Exactly. And that's
goodness.
why this decision, in my view, is by far one of the most dangerous decisions that the Supreme Court of Canada ever made. And it's particularly a problem for religious communities,
Right.
which we have seen already, Trinity Western,
Yes.
right? It's denied. It has a charter right for religious freedom. It's not subject to the charter. It's a private institution, not getting government money. It already had a previous decision in its favor, and all of that meant nothing
No value.
because of the charter value concept. I mean, it's simply outrageous as far as I'm concerned. Now, so what does this mean now going forward? Well, going forward, we get, for example, Justice McLaughlin in her concurring agreement, concurring decision, she says that what really bothers her in this whole thing is that if the Law Society granted the accreditation to the law school, then the Law Society would be condoning
Oh my goodness.
the discrimination or the deemed
would be
discrimination.
complicit in that discrimination.
Complicit,
Yeah.
right? So how far do you take that?
Yeah, I know.
So, for example, one of Justice Malcolm Rowe, who unfortunately went with the majority decision, but nevertheless he caught what the issue was here. During the oral argument, the intervener for the Canadian Bar Association said that the government now must be careful as to granting its what they call public benefits, so things like approvals, accreditation, so forth, and any special status. And the question was asked, well, is granting charitable status a public benefit? And she said yes. And then Justice Malcolm Rowe says, well, so let's have a look at here for a minute. Look at my Jesuit, my hypothetical Jesuit institute. In order to be a Jesuit, you have to be a Catholic. In order to be a Jesuit priest, you've got to be a man. So are you saying that, is your logic that that institute then would not have charitable status or tax-exempt status based on those discriminatory positions?
Right.
And she said, well, that's not the case before us. But he says, is that not?
But is that where we're going?
Is that where we're going? And she says, yes, that's where the logic leads.
Wow.
And she says, we can't back away from it. That's where we are. So when I heard that, it became very clear to me that this thing is ongoing now. Like, I mean, this is not stopping with just accreditation.
Sound like it, yeah.
No. It's now going to be the argument, well, if your organization is now going to violate charter values
that no one defines.
That no one defines except those in authority,
Yes.
And if the government agency were to grant accreditation or the public benefit, then they would be condoning that discrimination. Okay, so think about it.
Yeah.
Charitable status
Who's
across the country. Yeah. Think about the religious schools, for example, elementary schools, high schools that get government accreditation for their education program. And if those are from religious communities where there are, traditional moral views, then is the education department then condoning discrimination? Or how about churches? Churches that preach a traditional way of life. You know, I refer to them as FHLI, and it's FHLI, fundamental human life issues like marriage, abortion issues, end of life, so forth, right? And so if there are these, and we know there are these many religious communities that hold very traditional views, and government is now somehow, there are 86,000 charities that are registered in Canada, 86,000. So then, following that logic of Trinity Western University decision, then is government now condoning the opinions and views of those 86,000 charities, of which we figure somewhere around 36,000 are actually Christian charities. Now, granted, not every Christian community is going to have the same view on all these issues, but that's not the point.
Right.
The point is there's going to be a lot of groups that hold these traditional views. So it's becoming a real dog's breakfast now. And now, here's another thing that's fascinating to me, and I tell you, not that I got an opinion on this, but I'm just saying, like, just consider, for example, that in 2001 decision of the Supreme Court said then, look, if we allow, remember that was the case dealing with the education degree.
Yes, in Trinity.
If we allow the admissions policies to prevent Trinity from being able to be accredited because it's deemed discriminatory and so on, then what is to stop for the agencies to say that an individual teacher who's a member of a particular church that has these views that they shouldn't be having they shouldn't be able to teach.
Yes, their accreditation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
to the individual.
So now to the individual. So that's what the court said in 2001. Okay. So, you follow the logic on, and we get to this absurd concept that by granting accreditation. Now, why is this even possible? Why is it, people say, well, Barry, you're being over dramatic on this. No, I'm not actually. Because if you look at the decision that was recently made by the Ontario Court of Appeal in dealing with Christian physicians and who had a problem with being involved with abortion industry and in doing referrals, in doing sex assignment surgeries and so forth, because it violates their personal conscience. Basically, the Ontario Court of Appeal said, well, perhaps being a physician is really not what you want to do.
Wow.
I mean, just think about that. I mean,
maybe you want to consider doing something else for a living.
Yeah. I mean, have we really come to this? I mean, it's just outrageous what's happening, and it just seems to me that the time has come for people to say, look, I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. This is just simply unacceptable. We have got to find a way in this country to be able to live together on the same piece of real estate, even though we have a difference of opinion, a difference of views, and all the rest of it.
Absolutely.
But it's now becoming this titanic struggle. And so anyhow, just to let you know that coming up real soon, we're having a book published. And what we've done is that based on the presentation on that second day of hearing in the Trinity Western case back in 2017, we decided, you know what? The issue of charitable status is going to become an issue of public discussion. So what we did was we got a group of scholars from Europe, from Britain, from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and we put together an apology, in other words, arguments supporting the right or the ability, or it's not the right, but I mean supporting society to continue to give registered charitable status to religious organizations or advancement or that are involved in the advancement of religion. And so we're basically saying, look, we are now, it's not a matter of just reading tea leaves anymore, because we see where the arguments are going, and we have got to be prepared because that's coming.
So, Barry, the Canadian summer jobs, how does that dovetail? Was that the government feeling that if they approved the funding, that they too would be condoning?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
that's actually being applied right now.
Well, it was, but they, because of the groups that rose up against it, and our office at Canadian Council of Christian Charities, we said, look, this is simply unacceptable, and we got involved in a very serious campaign on this. We actually have a legal defense fund. We encourage people to give and to support us in this work.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, what was happening, like, here it is. The government says that anyone who's applying for these Canada Summer Jobs must agree to the government's position on charter values. First of all, we don't even know what charter values are, and that we not violate the charter. Well, guess what? The charter doesn't. We have no responsibility in keeping the charter. We're not government. We're private citizens. It is only the government that can violate the charter, not citizens, not religious organizations. So when government was going around saying, well, you must sign here saying that you're not going to violate the charter. Well, we can't violate the charter in law. Basic law is impossible. Government can violate the charter. Government has a responsibility. We don't. But you see, here's what's happening. And this is why it's so problematic. Authoritarian governments always put their responsibility onto the citizens. So then the citizens began looking at other citizens and saying, hey, you're violating government policy on this, that, and the other thing. And so here we have an example of the government saying, well, we're going to treat these organizations that receive government money as if they're government actors. No, That's not how it works. That's never how it's been working in our society. And it is something, if we're a free, loving society, we simply cannot accept that kind of thing. And so anyhow, that's been a real bone of contention, and it's something we've got to keep our eyes on the ball, because anytime we see government trying to impose such concepts as charter values, we have no idea what you're talking about, and then for them to be violating charter rights, it's just simply wrong.
My goodness, you know, like I said to you last time, the fact is that most of us are ignorant to these things.
You know, and I think this is one of the problems. Remember, as I shared with you on last time, there are three groups: the media, the legal profession, and academia, right? In essence, what's happening, in my view, there's kind of an echo chamber going on. People in the media, academia, and so on are talking amongst themselves and are coming up with these ideas and concepts. But the average person simply has not a clue as to what's happening and how it's going to affect their own lives. Now, let me tell you that if things happen, like the Canada Summer Jobs is a perfect example. When people began to see that they weren't going to get the money to run the church camps, for example, then they got to see firsthand what this ideology leads to.
Right. We have a saying in Brazil. I lived in Brazil, and it's something like, "Pepper on your tongue doesn't burn me." Right? So it only affects me when it's on me, right?
Yes, exactly.
So all of a sudden people ran to, wait a second, this has an impact on us as an organization, as an individual. Very interesting.
Yeah. So I encourage you, Bill, and your viewers to just kind of keep track of what's happening. And we're doing everything we can at Canadian Council of Christian Charities to let people know what's happening so that they're prepared.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thought that when you think that government can act in a way just because someone's thoughts offended them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And their
I didn't like that. I didn't like what you said.
Yeah, and their definitions carry the day because they have power.
Yeah.
And that's a real problem.
Wow. We're going to have, if it's okay with you, a link from my website.
Sure, absolutely.
To you, to your Twitter, to your, I know you do a blog too, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we have a blog called Intersection, and we are basically, as issues come up, I'm writing about it. I give my perspective on things. I have a very active Facebook page, Law and Religion. So Facebook/Law and Religion Canada, and what I'm doing there is I'm putting up the cases and stories that are like live, like it's like probably 4 or 5 times a week or more that I'm posting things on there, and so we're trying to let people know what the issues are.
You know, one of the reasons I love having you on the program, because you are a scholar, but you speak in a way that everybody understands, and you communicate very effectively, and I really appreciate that. Well,
these are issues that motivate me, certainly, because I see it, and I see it from a historical perspective. You know, when these individual freedoms are being taken away, it goes to a bad end.
Yeah, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, our time just flies by.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you. We're gonna have to have you back, because I think we need to be spending more time talking about these impactful realities in our life. So thank you very much. We'll see you back again. We're going to end the program with a prayer like we do every program.
Sure.
Our gracious God, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you again for these moments that we have spent just learning a little bit more about what is going on in our world, Heavenly Father. And I just pray for Barry and people like him that stand up for these freedoms and promote these. And Father, I think of our leaders, our judges, our politicians. Father, just guide them and allow them the wisdom to make the right decisions that will move this country forward. We thank you for everything you do for us. Bless each and every viewer now, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, we've come to the end of another Lessons for Living television program. I want to thank you so much for being here with us. and ask you to help us in getting the word out so your friends and family can join us next time. Dr. Bussey made reference to a book that he has that deals with these issues. We will have a link on our website that will allow you to purchase this book and get this information into your hands, because we need to be aware of what is happening. Dr. Bussey, thank you so much for coming.
Great to be here, Bill, for sure.
We like I said, we want to have you back again because these topics are so vital to us. And so God bless you in the work that you do. And
thank you.
Let folks know what's your Twitter, how to get a hold of you on Twitter.
Sure. It's just Barry W. Bussey, or at Barry W. Bussey, Twitter. And then for Facebook, it's Law and Religion Canada.
Okay. We'll have those links also on our website. Because we're going to officially announce that you're our legal expert here at Lessons for Living Television. Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Santos_Bill. Every morning, a 1-minute devotional video goes out. And folks tell me, for many of them, that's the way they start their day. You know, they get their cup of coffee and they watch that devotional video. It's a good idea to start your day with your mind on things of heaven. Follow us on Twitter. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And this program and all the programs, you can download an audio of this program on SoundCloud. That'll be available on our Twitter page and on our Facebook page about an hour from the end of this program. And you can take that audio version of the program with you wherever you go. And so think of that. It's another resource that is available to you. Remember our website, l4ltv.com, and our overseas humanitarian work website, missionnowcanada.com. On both of those websites, there's a Donate Today tab. If you feel so impressed to do so, you can make a donation to help keep this ministry on the air. We are a charitable organization, and we'll send you a receipt for income tax purposes. We are all out of time. Barry, thank you again. And thank you to our viewers. We look forward to seeing you here again next time. God bless you. We'll see you then.